All right. I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Let me get started. I think that we're all set right now and I can move on and move forward. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 858, Black Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and reference. If you want to join the discussion, there's a link pinned at the top of the chat. It's a Zoom link. Make sure you update your Zoom client before joining. And happy holidays and happy New Year to everyone. Let's get started really quickly. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times. I changed my tune on dollar stores, but Black neighborhoods still need full-service grocers. This is still a problem in 2024. Let's talk about it real quickly. Let me zoom in. Another day, another dollar store. Those were my thoughts several months ago when I watched the conversion of a long-shuttered Save-A-Lot discount grocer into a discount Family Dollar at 83rd Street and Stony Island Avenue. Many of us in the Avalon Park neighborhood wish for a grocery store instead. Dollar store chains love Black neighborhoods in Chicago. Dollar Tree, green sign, owns Family Dollar, orange and red sign. On Stony Island alone, there's a Family Dollar on 89th Street, Dollar Tree on 87th Street, Family Dollar on 76th Street, and Dollar Tree on 72nd Street. With the new one on 83rd Street, that brings the number to 5, all on the same busy thoroughfare. I'm beyond intrigued by at the economic model and competition among stores so close to each other. I requested an interview with a company honcho, but Family Dollar sent a boilerplate statement in corporate speak that said, we've run a series of predictive models and real estate availability. But the company made a compelling point in the statement about the consumer demand, including not so veiled digs at Walmart and Target. Quote, as many big box retailers have closed in Chicago neighborhoods in recent months, we are investing in Chicago with location in 46 wards throughout the city, and 84% of all Chicago consumers shopping at dollar stores for a quick trip, essential fill-in purchases, including basic household goods and foods such as milk, frozen foods, and assorted and dry goods. Can't argue with that statement. As grocery and big box stores close up shop in Chicago, dollar stores do fill a void in Black neighborhoods. While Walmart pivoted from rural to urban centers like Chicago without the success the giant retailer predicted, dollar stores seem to have figured out where the buck stops. In 2008, a Family Dollar spokesman did talk to me on the record and said the chain was implementing an aggressive urban initiative because people in big cities might not have access to a car to shop at a big box. The dollar store provides convenience, and the business move is paying dividends with multiple nearby locations on the south and west sides of the city. But folks are tired of dollar stores as their main shopping option. An anti-dollar store movement is growing here and nationally, as some lawmakers try to stop their expansion in their communities. Sure, the chains have expanded food offerings, but they are not full-service grocers with fresh produce. Too much canned and processed food, and that hurts low-income communities. But to be clear, food insecurity hurts Black neighborhoods regardless of their resident socioeconomic status. I too have turned my nose up at dollar stores, hungry for better shopping options. But during the pandemic, I changed my tune. The chains always had sold out everywhere else disinfectant wipes. It's also good for discount holiday decorations. Living near so many dollar stores means I shop there because I don't have many other choices. But critics question whether the ubiquitous nature of dollar stores turns off potential businesses from opening. Even in the integrated Beverly neighborhood, the presence of dollar stores is seen as lowbrow. Alderman Matt O'Shea, let me advance this person in. Matt O'Shea of the 19th Ward has tried to block Dollar Tree from opening on Western Avenue. When I called the city to get status update, I was told the chain does not have an active business license. I'm not going to read too much into this. I mean, that's pretty much the end of it. But the thing here is to understand is that food co-ops, grocery co-ops are a thing. And if you don't have a model in place to implement a grocery co-op for Black people on the ground, then what's going to happen here is you're going to have these sort of Dollar Trees and these other outside predatory sort of businesses come in and kind of profit off of the community and the capacity that doesn't benefit them. And so we've always talked about farming co-ops, business co-ops, other grocery co-ops as a solution to food deserts in the Black community. And I think that what's happening in Chicago is the lack of foresight to actually drive a co-op of that capacity. And so Chicago is suffering like many other Black communities around the country that they need a grocery co-op in their community, and they don't have it, at least not immediately right now. Complex, you have anything you want to add to that?
Hey, Mike, man, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah, Zoom crashed on me. I'm not sure. Um, Damn, there was a point you made about co-ops, dude.
Mhm.
And I think what happened was I was trying to dig up the co-op live stream we did. Remember the guerrilla farming?
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to dig that up. I just want to post that as a
Mhm.
follow-up to your comment, and I'll go ahead and let you rock with the next article.
No, definitely. I think that all of that supply chain needs to be built into the ecosystem, right?
Hmm.
And I think what's happening here is that there's a lack of foresight at the top, and people are not it's not connecting with people at the bottom. People are actively boycotting these dollar stores, Dollar Trees, and all these sort of dollar markets because they don't see any value in it. They get maybe one or two things from there, and things are not even a dollar for that matter.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
right. It's in the name only, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
What's going on, MOT?
I think while MOT gets his mic together, let me dig that live stream up so I can post it.
Okay. All right, next item on the docket is from the Charlotte Observer. In
Mike, can you hear
Mecklenburg,
me?
I can hear you now. What's going on?
Oh, sorry, I came in muted. That's what happened. Oh, I actually deliver for all those dollar type of establishments, and the only thing you have to do is pass local city council law that if you're going to put this here, you got to have to sell milk, eggs, and some sort of vegetables in there.
Yeah,
That's it.
yep. 72 hours
A-
of groceries.
And also like what I've seen in a lot of these places, they have like this save a lot. I don't deliver for them. I'm not sure how their supply chain work. But a lot of these save a lots are opening up right beside these Dollar Generals, Dollar Trees, and Family Dollar. And, they offer the basic, kind of Aldi, pretty much. Everything that's pretty much in the Aldi is in there. And I've seen them combat the stuff in kind of that way. Whenever there's an actual, because most times, unless you're like in a very, very, very rural area like in Kentucky or even Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
there is still space around, like across the street or down the street or around the corner. There's always a closed down supermarket. There used to be something.
Mm-hmm.
And like that public private co-op thing is something that needs to happen because farmers don't have a problem doing it for diesel. They don't have a problem at all with
Mm-hmm.
public private co-ops. It's just that the money has to be there and accessible for people to actually run it inside the community. And what they have to do is make sure like a certain number of people are hired within the community if they're going to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them get tax abatements. I know in Boston we don't allow Walmarts in. That's permanent. They're permanently banned from the city. But we have Stop and Shop, and we have Star Market and Market Basket, and a few others. Whole Foods is here too, but and Trader Joe's. And so there's a litany of choice from a grocer standpoint where there are no food deserts. Now, what I will say is that there are tech deserts. But that's a different topic for a different day. But the problem here is when you have people who can't walk 15 minutes to a grocery store, that becomes a problem. And I think that's what's happened in Chicago is that all these Family Dollars and Dollar Trees are
Closing
just,
down.
well, they're just popping up in place of Target and
Well,
Walmart leaving.
yeah, I was gonna say they got I'm trying to remember some of the other grocery stores that so I know Treasure Island, for example, over like in Hyde Park, they closed down.
Mm-hmm.
There is Osco, I think it's called Osco. I think some of those closed down over on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to
Yeah, that's
remember.
right. It's Osco something
Is it
because
Osco? Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of
something
the ones.
because I see them in Illinois when I'm going through Illinois. I do see those type of places. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
So
is
so
Osco something.
yeah, it's Osco something. So them, Treasure Island, and there's like another one. Dude, they all shut down. Um, I remember there was another one. They were kind of like a farm, like a Trader Joe's type of place over in sort of like the Washington Hills, Blue Island area, suburb
Okay.
of Illinois, kind of like a Trader Joe's, right? And it's hard for them to kind of stay in competition given, what's going on. But I remember all of them like closing down, man. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, you got the Dollar Generals that pop up. But Mike, I did post that link there. It's episode 278.
Awesome. Dope. Thanks. In Mecklenburg, one side of the street earns $230,000 more than the other half. Let me zoom in on this. Nowhere in Mecklenburg County is the income gap between the haves and the have-nots starker than along a portion of Randolph Road just south of Upton. Here, a single road and some willow oak trees separate Charlotte's wealthiest neighborhood from its poorest. West of Randolph Road is Eastover with pristine lawns, $1 million homes, and a median household income of more than $250,000, the highest in the country. Oh, sorry, the county, according to the newly released census data. East of Randolph Road is GRE Heights, where the household income is less than $21,000, the lowest in the county. A Charlotte Observer analysis of the census data found that that's an income gap of roughly $230,000. Quote, "The feeling of disparity is very high," said Judy Brown, a 7-year GRE Heights resident. When you drive out of here and you go into Cotswold and you go into Eastover and you go into Myers Park, we automatically feel that these are not our people. These are not people who have the same life experiences as I do. The median household income in Cotswold tops $125,000. In Myers Park, it surpasses $230,000. According to the census estimates, which covered the 5-year period between 2018 and 2022. While the income disparity between Eastover and GRE Heights is the largest in the county, it's not uncommon for homes in Mecklenburg's wealthier neighborhoods to earn $100,000 or more than its poorest communities, the Observer analysis found. In some cases, these communities are separated by just a few miles. For instance, in South Charlotte, towards Matthews, 2 miles separates Stonehaven, where the median household income is $157,600, from East Forest, where the household income is $47,300. Further south, people in Olds Province South, homes make $185,000. 3 miles west is Seven Eagles. They bring in $42,700, data shows. Then there's Eastover and GRE Heights, separated by only Randolph Road near Mint Museum, Randolph. Eastover's median household income is 12 times higher than its neighbor across the street. I mean, that's a.
Sheesh.
I mean that
Like
that
literally
across
across the street.
I mean, like that sounds like some Colorado stuff, man. Like in between the hoods of like these areas where you could be a $400,000 or $500,000 house, and then like a next block over can be like maybe 150. Crazy. I mean, that's how the city is set up. So,
I mean, I think that also impacts your voting demographics as well, but that's a different discussion for a different day.
I don't know. I think those two discussions are inextricably linked, but go ahead, man. Continue.
Yeah, Dan Morel, a professor emeritus of history at UNC Charlotte, lives on the edge of Eastover in a bubble, as he calls it. The neighborhood was developed in the 1920s with deed restrictions that allowed only white residents, he said. Those restrictions were ruled unconstitutional in the 1960s, but Eastover is still 99% white, according to the census estimates. More than 90% of the residents there have a bachelor's degree. Quote, "Capitalism is the most dynamic system we have to create wealth," Morel said. But it has a flaw. There are a whole bunch of people who are left behind. Brown lives about a mile and a half to the east of Morel, across Randolph Road. But she said her neighborhood, home to people who work at 7-Eleven, Starbucks, and other service-related jobs, might as well be a world away. GRE Heights is mostly Black. Less than 1% of its residents have a bachelor's degree, and 60% live below the poverty line, census data show. Quote, "You have very, very poor people here," said Brown, who founded, this person in, who founded and runs Project 70 Forward, a nonprofit that supports people with disabilities. It's definitely a have and have not. 25 of Mecklenburg County's 300 plus census tracts neighborhood size boundaries the federal government uses for census counts have a median household income of more than $150,000. 6 neighborhoods have a median income of more than $200,000. These areas dot the county's northern region and fill the wedge of South Uptown between South Boulevard to the west and Independence Boulevard to the east. Meanwhile, 44 neighborhoods having median household income of less than $50,000 and 4 have an income of less than $30,000, the Observer analysis found. The income disparity is not unique to Charlotte, said Ismail Quiniam, Kayam, principal attorney at the Queen City Community Law Firm, which specializes in eviction prevention and housing discrimination. Most major areas suffer from an income gap among their neighborhoods. But Charlotte is atypical in some ways, Aquam said. Yes, it experienced redlining and urban renewal like many other cities, but city leaders also have failed to attach requirements to publicly funded projects that would help low income residents. I don't know why this is written so poorly.
They get AI.
They use Chat GPT.
Something I don't know. And the city's booming banking industry, which supports thousands of high-paying jobs, further widens the income gap. Quote, those things add fuel to the fire that heightened inequality in a lot of ways, said Kayam, adding much of the inequality involves Black residents. At $56,000, median household income for Black residents is not only lower than that of white, Asian, and Hispanic residents, but it is also the slowest growing income census data show. In the years before and after the pandemic, income for Black homeowners increased 12.6% compared to 15% for whites and 20% for Hispanics. Predominantly Black neighborhoods like Lincoln Heights, Washington Heights, Bitterville, and Enderley Park, all north of Uptown, have a median income less than $50,000. GRE Heights is about 3/4 Black, and its median household income only recently topped $20,000. So much for high value. But Morel, Brown, and Kayam said they don't think GRE Heights will stay like that for long. Change is coming. White residents have moved into many of the new houses built near Randolph Road, Brown said. And the neighborhood shopping center, Greer Plaza, on Wendover Road, is getting a makeover, which includes a Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. It's a catch-22, Brown said. The improvements are great, but Brown doesn't want them to come at the expense of what makes GRE Heights special. Residents who know each other and support each other with programs like food drives and mentoring. But change will happen, Kayam said. Quote, it will most likely be a neighborhood that's unaffordable for someone who's not making a six-figure income or close to a six-figure income, he said. Well, here's the deal, man. I think this is it. Here's the deal. Number one, you shouldn't be allowing projects to be built and developed in that area without connecting it to the people on the ground. What happened was leadership failed to create stipulations that would actually allow residents to be part and partial to the development of the area. And so when you allow these outsiders to come in and build and do things, like build these plazas and these mall strips and things like that, and they don't take into consideration who lives there and whether or not this is this thing is viable, then you end up with situations like this. This is why when we talk about micromobility, you take that into consideration into your civil development plans. Bike lanes are a part of that infrastructure and things of that nature. So I don't, it frustrates me to hear things like this, but it's like, these are really simple things that could be solved, with just a few strokes of the pen.
Well, Mike, I was going to say, you really nailed it. What it is that there's not, the business plan does not include, there's not vertical business models involved.
Your microphone is really muffled.
I'm sorry. Wait,
Well,
how's it now?
when you finish, I want to add something when you're done. Complex.
Oh, absolutely, Nugo. Am I coming through okay, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Um, to speak to your point, they don't. There's not like verticality, right? What a horizontal element that involves other community stakeholders. That's what you're speaking to. It really just becomes a a business proposition where it's like, let us put this building up. We don't necessarily have to concern ourselves with the community impact, short term and long term, right? We don't really necessarily have to do that. What we can do is we can justify this development that it'll serve the immediate needs of the people. However, the long term impact and what it does to also facilitate inclusion in the community in and of itself, this stuff has to be integrated. It can't just be something that just sucks from the community, right? And I think that was the point that you were speaking to. So, I just wanted to say they don't ever consider that part of the equation. Go ahead and go.
Yeah, well, as far as community planning boards and so forth, really developing that community, that is not being done. That also comes down to politics. We have to look at where things are lined up politically on the ground floor to really deal with this development. Now, why I say this is pretty important is why I say not only is important is politics and the money is involved, because these areas you're talking about, TIA, a client of mine, TIA Cref, Allied Bank, and then they've all moved and centered their headquarters down there in Charlotte and these areas in North Carolina, right there, right out of Mecklenburg County. And those are bringing in very high paying jobs and totally meeting the immediate needs of those jobs that are opening up in that area, that they're moving out of New York and some moving out of California, moving into these areas. Boom. That's what you've got there. And who there on the ground politically, locally, are really there trying to really address those issues and meet the needs of housing and how this is going to change with respect to the residents that are there as well. We're not a part of that process. So the planning boards and so forth that are developing these areas are without question not addressing those needs at all. So it's just not one simple thing. It's got a couple of layers to it, if you follow what I'm saying.
Well, keep in mind, it is the South that we're talking about here. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
they don't ask.
What's the
They don't
South
ask.
like
They
a
see a
mother?
cheap piece of land, they go build it up, and then they run into this issue, and then the real estate just goes bare for a while, and then later on down the line, it gets picked up by nonprofits, and all of a sudden, it's back up again. Mostly by the same people, just coming back in under different situations and still running it as a nonprofit, buying their own property back.
But they're building
see a
out.
lot of that down there too.
Yeah, and they're building out these neighborhoods to to support the new jobbers that are coming in there, and these guys are definitely making six figures, and a lot of times it's husband and wife, working in these companies, and they're six figures both, and here you go, here they are, killing, cranking it up, and they're building these houses, they're building out these neighborhoods real quick, and right across the way, there's a whole other area that's been that way. Those residents been there for 40, 50, 60, 100 years or however. And they have scaled like the new transplants coming in from New York and Connecticut and these areas were coming into their, these corporate headquarters and getting the big money. How do I know this? Because one of my good friends actually left, came back here to New York consequently, but left into North Carolina for a 2-year period behind TIA Cref to follow his job and so forth. And he was the managing director, and he's making very serious money. So that's going on big time down there, and it's continuing to happen. And it's kind of interesting that these guys are not really addressing that issue, but So there's a lot of politics involved with that as well, and I just wanted to just highlight that, because when you start dealing with city planning, your city planning boards and so forth, to really help to manage that development, that's got to be done at the local political level as well. And you're seeing where we're not involved in that process.
All right, this is from blackenterprise.com. Black-owned lifestyle brand crowdfunds 75,000 with Drew and Lauren Holiday Fund support. Sorry, let me zoom in on this. In a rare crowdfunding effort, a Black-owned New Jersey lifestyle brand intends to secure $75,000 in financing from the Drew and Lauren Holiday Social Impact Fund and Newark Alliance. Newark-based Brown Mill Atelier, the flagship storefront of Brown Mill Company, recently announced up to $75,000 of all December sales will be paired with extra funding. In November, Brown Mill Company was selected as a 2023 Drew Lauren Holiday grantee. JHL vowed to match up to $35,000 in sales to support the company. In December, the Newark Alliance joined the campaign by launching a match of up to $40,000 in sales. Now the funding could help Brown Mill reach its $100,000 crowdfunding goal before 2024 if it gains the full match from the fund providers. According to Brown Mill's website, over $50,000 has already been raised online. The new funding differs from the usual crowdfunding that typically raises money from many people to finance a business drive or campaign. The brand's products include ethically conscious and environmentally friendly clothing for men and women. Goods are sold online at its Newark site along Hazley Street, the shopping entertainment hub in downtown Newark. Brown Mill Atelier was its first storefront in June 2021, and it became an anchor tenant. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Since then, the brand support includes NBA players, including Holiday, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. The fresh funding support will reportedly help propel Brown Mill to the next phase, including potentially assisting in buying a new building, expanding the brand's clothing range, and increasing its sustainability and community impact. Brown Mill's project's revenue of $500,000 to $600,000 in 2024. That would compare with 2021 revenue of $327,000 and $350,000 in 2022. Brown Mill says the higher sales could come from upcoming strategic partnerships with major U.S. retailers in 2024. The U.S. business also plans next year to expand its reach with various Brown Mill pop-up shops along the West Coast, and is taking big steps to scale up e-commerce efforts, investing more in digital media and advertising. Brown Mill co-founder and CFO Kwaku Iomeng added, and we're not stopping there. We're going international with our first pop-up tour in cities like Toronto, London, Amsterdam, and Accra, making a pivotal moment in Brown Mill's global journey in history. In terms of community engagement, the Brown Mill brand is proactive. For instance, the brand hosts standalone events and event series, including monthly game nights, seasonal festivals and markets, and school supply drives. And it also co-sponsors a garden in Newark called Giving 1/10 that provides fresh and organic vegetables to residents. Quote, "We are immensely grateful for the support the Newark community, JLH, and the Newark Alliance have shown towards Brown Mill's growth over the last few years," said Justice Pitts Goodson, co-founder and CEO of Brown Mill Company. We are excited for this crowdfunding campaign to continue our momentum and strengthen the impact of our sustainable legacy will have on Halsey Street in Newark and beyond. Boston Celtics guard and 2021 champion Drew Holiday and his wife Lauren, a two-time Olympic gold medalist for the U.S. women's national soccer team, launched their social impact fund in 2020 after the COVID-19 pandemic in protest over the murder of George Floyd. Black Enterprise has previously reported on some of their efforts. Here's the deal. I think at this point, if you want to launch a brand, it has to be centered around sustainability and community impact, social impact. And I know a lot of people don't really like these sort of leftist terms and things like that, but that's really the real way that Black people can really raise money and raise capital for their, their businesses, their new up and coming businesses, their startups, primarily because if there's no connection to the community, there's no connection to really helping people, at the end of the day, it turns a lot of people off.
Were we just talking about that, about the food just a minute ago, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that sort of stuff. Your business has to encompass. It can't just be you got an app or you got a website or something like that. It has to be connected to how it impacts people on the ground at the end of the day. And if you're not really impacting people on the ground, it's going to be hard to raise funds.
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're just no one, another FUBU doesn't really impress anybody. FUBU's already been done before, right? But what comes after that, right? What do you really provide to people on the ground who are in need? I mean, that's kind of what they the venture capitalists are looking at. They're looking at what are your ESG goals, what are your environmental, social, and governance goals, and DEI agendas and things of that nature. That's what they want to look at, and that's where Drew Holiday comes in. Him and his wife come in and they say, "You're doing this, and this. Okay, this is where we're going to match you." Right? Same thing with PEVs. How does your business connect with the community? Well, we help people get from point A to point B with environmentally friendly vehicles because they don't put any sort of carbon emissions. Boom. That's an easy elevator pitch. But we don't really see micromobility startups and things like that getting funded in the Black community at that level. But I'm saying this is the way forward. If you're trying to launch a business, you got to connect it to how it impacts people on the ground.
You're right. No, and just to kind of speak to, there's 2 points here, and I don't want to lose the first one. So, if you guys have all heard of American Apparel?
Yes.
You've heard of American Apparel? Okay.
Yes.
So American Apparel was a company till they got embroiled into some not so savory situations with regards to internal matters. You can go look it up and see what I'm talking about. But prior to all of that, American Apparel did just exactly what you're talking about, Mike. And from a textiles standpoint, clothing manufacturing, they acquired a very old plant in downtown LA, and they got a shit ton of money from the state and from the city of Los Angeles to get all of the manufacturing, do local hiring, the whole bit. If you guys can just look this up, I want to say Vice did a few pieces on American Apparel, but and then the extension from that was these retail locations and somewhat upscale places and stuff like that. So there was a retail aspect of it to where they hired out people in other places in the country that were selling the clothing. So like I said, outside of all of the controversy that happened internally, which led to the downfall of American Apparel, the model in and of itself speaks to what it is that Drew and his wife Lauren are trying to do, and that's why I wanted to bring up American Apparel with regards to that. And then with regards to the PEV piece that you brought up, Mike, you're absolutely right. In order for us to have been able to launch these scooters publicly, there were things that we needed to do in terms of like utilizing like carbon emissions calculators to essentially make the case that, well, listen, you know, per these amount of usages and this and that, this is how much carbon reduction this is going to see, and this city's going to see, or this location's going to see. And what that does is it meets certain EPA goals for the state from an aggregate standpoint. So what you're doing is you're contributing to the larger EPA carbon reduction goals, right? So if you have a proper use case that can lend to the reduction of these carbon emission goals, then there will be monies for you to assist in achieving that goal.
All right. Let's move on to USA Today. Drew and Lauren Holiday give money and so much more to Black businesses and nonprofits. Just talked about them, right? Better Youth brought in a little over $50,000 through its fundraising efforts last year. This year, the Los Angeles nonprofit is up to $350,000 and counting. The difference, the Drew and Lauren Holiday Fund. Quote, talking to funders, I can say, if they are investing in us, you should too, said Sid Stewart, founder and executive director of Better Youth, which provides mentoring and media arts training to kids in the foster system and other at-risk youth. Quote, we've been able to just leverage it and say, this is an investment and we are worth it. Grants from the JLH Fund can be a lifeline to Black business owners and Black-run nonprofits. Carla Briggs, owner of Viola's Heritage Breads in New Orleans, isn't sure she'd be still in business without the funding from she received from the JLH Fund in 2021 after Hurricane Ida destroyed much of her operation. But it is everything else the JLH Fund offers to grantees: weekly coaching sessions, software and technical assistance, it's access to other funding sources. That helps these businesses and nonprofits go from surviving to thriving, and often providing a helping hand to others along the way. Quote, as a Black business and a woman-owned business, there are a lot of education and support needed to cover some gaps when throwing money at it doesn't fix it. It's how do I use the funding to grow my business? Briggs said. They do more than just write the check. They help you get the resources. They create a community. Drew Holiday, a all-star guard now with the Boston Celtics, and Lauren Holiday, a World Cup champion and two-time Olympic gold medalist, started the JLH Fund in 2020. They were dismayed to see small businesses and organizations struggle, often unsuccessfully, to stay afloat during the height of the COVID pandemic, and devastated at the systemic racism that continues to plague our community, our country. What if they could do something to address both issues? Using the $5.3 million Drew Holiday earned in the NBA bubble, the JLH Fund began awarding grants in 2021. They selected Black-owned businesses and Black-run nonprofits in their hometowns of Los Angeles and Indianapolis, as well as the New Orleans and Milwaukee cities where Drew has played in the NBA. They awarded additional grants in the 4 cities in 2020 and 2022 and 2023.
Stretching that NBA money.
Initially, the grants addressed immediate financial needs, but the Holidays soon realized the JLH Fund needed to go further. Black entrepreneurs, both in business and nonprofits, often in a survey released earlier this year by Intuit QuickBooks, 57% of Black business owners said they'd been denied a loan at least once, well above the 37% of white owners who reported the same. It also costs It also cost Black business owners about $5,000 more to start their business than it did white owners. Let me stop here and just think about this for a second. If I'm trying to launch a micromobility business, it's going to cost me $5,000 more out of my pocket just to launch a business compared to the white Bird, entrepreneurs from Bird and Lime and these other sort of startups. So I'm already $5 negative in the hole.
5,000. And Mike, let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
What is that $5,000 for, actually?
I don't want to speculate on what they're saying, but I would assume that it's probably lawyer fees, getting the licenses and things like that,
Yeah.
time,
Yeah,
labor.
I just really wanted to know, like, your thoughts. Like, what is that? What is that additional 5,000 for? What would you imagine it for? I've been here, right?
Yeah.
We've been here with this. I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what the hell they're talking about, right? And so I
Yeah.
just wanted to get your thoughts. Like, what in your mind would be that? Like you said, you're 5K in the hole.
Yeah. If I'm a trucking business, I may not be able to get a brand new truck. I gotta go buy something that's used. And if I buy something that's used, it might be a Suzu. It might be something that's, not American made. There's a whole lot of, what ifs in that area that as to why I'm 5,000 negative in the hole just because of the color of my skin. That's crazy. White-led nonprofits are more likely, 71% to 58%, to receive corporate donations than those led by people of color, according to the Nonprofit Finance Fund. The unrestricted net assets of Black-led nonprofits are 76% smaller than those of white-led nonprofits, according to Bridgespan Group and Echoing Green. Quote, what we've learned is a lot of businesses and nonprofits are facing a lot of the same struggles and same hurdles and a lot of systemic racism. They can't get over that hump, or they struggle to get over that hurdle. Lauren Holiday said, we wanted to create a community that uplifts and brings together in the same way the things that they were lacking. Drew and I, we have full understanding. We didn't get here by ourselves. Our families are so supportive, but it takes a village outside of them to be able to support us, to pour into us, to get us to where we've been. How do we create that village for someone else? Grant recipients are required to attend weekly coaching sessions, which can cover everything from how to raise additional funding to creating a business plan. They are provided with computer software designed for business and IT support. They are given mobile phones with up-to-date technology, the lack of which can be a barrier for small business owners and nonprofits. Quote, this business started from my savings account. Now it's not in my savings account anymore. It has a real chance to grow and have some capacity, building infrastructure behind me because of this fund, said Giovanni Hundo Vogel, whose Milwaukee-based Ghetto Mantras offers self-care products and in-person wellness events. Well, it's better products for my customers because now I'm able to purchase at a larger quantity and I can get more efficient pricing, Hundo Vogel said. I'm able to build more infrastructure, more marketing, more research. This grant, everything that I've done, it's just been amplified on every level. The holidays have also have given recipients entree into a world that likely would otherwise be off limits to them. At the Holiday Classic, the celebrity basketball game they've organized earlier this year, and as a fundraiser for the JLH Fund, they've invited the friends and contacts they've made throughout their high-profile careers, and gave away their gift bags featuring products sold by grant recipients. Hundo Vogel told of meeting British rapper Estelle and making sure she saw Ghetto Mantras with Friends, a book of affirmations included in the gift bag. Later that night, Hundo Vogel received a bulk order for the books from Estelle. The singer now follows her on Instagram too. Quote, just because Drew and Lauren put me in that room, Hundo Vogel said, it's that community that might be the most valuable piece of the JLH Fund. The weekly coaching calls have become a network in itself, a place for recipients can brainstorm, share resources, contacts, and find people to lean on when they are overwhelmed by the demands of getting and keeping a small business or nonprofit running.
Did they call Estelle a rapper?
I guess. I don't know how she falls in that category, but
I didn't know she had ill 16.
Kiana Walker, who created Next Great Architects in Indianapolis to promote interest in architecture among kids, particularly children of color, said women and people of color often have to find non-traditional ways to build their business because of the barriers that exist to funding and support. But it's not uncommon for those people to have their ideas stolen or co-opted by the very people who are supposed to be helping them.
Yeah.
These are probably first generation business owners. They don't know what to do. They don't know what route they need to take. Walker said, people like Drew and Lauren Holiday give us the ability to keep our ideas and move them from forward before someone else can come in and take it away. What they are doing is literally setting the foundation, and not only for the grant recipients. Better Youth can provide life-changing skills and opportunities for children who might otherwise find themselves trapped in the system with a few options to get ahead. A child who didn't know anything about architecture or design or engineering might be inspired to pursue one of those careers because of Next Great Architect and wind up creating a building or structure that will be talked about for generations to come. Someone who finds themselves struggling through the long, dreary Wisconsin winter might find hope in Ghetto Mantra in-person event in February. The money Briggs spends on supplies and payroll will in turn lift up other people in New Orleans. And on it goes, the ripple effect, spending far beyond what Drew and Lauren Holiday imagined a few years ago. The disparities that historically exist with Black businesses and getting funding, we know that it's really going to take someone to step in a big way to help create not only economic change, but equitable outcomes for Black businesses, Hundo Vogel said. This is effective change that can last a lifetime, she added. We can transform generations. I always find it interesting that, for one, Drew Holiday, married to a white woman, seems to give back more than any of these fuck boy rappers, man, who always talking about catching bodies and all that stuff. Man, you never see these guys, in these articles giving away anything or providing anything. They just take from the Black community and then they leave.
I want to say there was a situation where I want to say his wife had cancer, dude.
Yeah, she was sick at one point, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think they have like a different purpose, in mind, given that. And I can understand why. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a very honest and sincere endeavor because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but we've covered Jaylen Brown from the Celtics before. The Celtics are very strong, just as a franchise and giving away and giving back to community. I've been around the Celtics for quite a few times, and I can tell you right now, they're always involved at the community level. They're always involved. Patriots too. Bob Kraft, Robert Kraft is always down to spend some dough or break people off with something. He's always involved. So I can't put that past past them as a whole. That a lot of Black players here do give back. Big Papi from the Red Sox, always involved. What's the other pitcher too? Manny, the pitcher, Manny from the Red Sox, always in the hood, always breaking folks off when he comes through. So definitely think that you don't really hear too much about Black players really giving back at that level, especially when in the areas that are needed. And I think that, they're bang on the money that Black businesses, nonprofits are always the ones that are struggling. And then people say, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. What do you think they're doing? you know, they're not just waiting around for somebody to come help them. They're the ones that's actually struggling. If it takes $5,000 more to start a business, what do you think they're doing?
Scraping up that extra 5K.
Trying to figure out where it's going to come from.
Right.
Yeah, I might have to buy a Chinese truck if I'm a, you know, from a trucking guy. I may have to, you know.
Or use a K truck from Japan.
No. I'm talking about these
Or
you know, these
little electric joints.
the 26 footers that's out now. I forget the name of them, but they, you know, these Chinese trucks. These are Chinese branded trucks that are in the United
Are
States.
they letting them come through imports here to the U.S.?
Yeah, as long as they're not, you know, full 50 capable of carrying 80,000 pound payload, they're perfectly fine for short run logistics. Yeah,
Yes.
they've been around for a while.
I know.
Yeah, at least less
I know
than
they
10
were
years.
Well, I didn't know they were Chinese.
Yeah, these are Chinese brand.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're no different than the Isuzus that you used to see running around back in the day, or the
Well, Isuzu was Japanese, wasn't it?
yeah, but I'm saying in terms of non-American.
Oh, yeah. Like Isuzu and Suzuki. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me grab the next article. I don't know why. All right, let me know you can see my screen.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, this is from TechCrunch. Tech's DEI backlash is here. The response to his tweet are split between the two factions that have appeared within the venture in recent years. Those who support diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and those who do not. Wealthy power players like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk have been very outspoken against the premise of DEI, with their thoughts shared and spread widely throughout the ecosystem. DEI must die. The point was to end discrimination, not replace it with different discrimination. Musk recently tweeted before responding to himself saying diversity, equity, inclusion are propaganda words for racism, sexism, and other isms. This is just as morally wrong as any other racism and sexism. Changing the target class doesn't make it right. DEI is a framework to help create more conscious workplace initiatives to help marginalized communities. These initiatives include ensuring a firm or a company attracts a diverse pool of talent, hires and promotes people without bias, and fosters positive working environments so all individuals can thrive. DEI received a lot of support after the murder of George Floyd back in 2020, but support has waned these past few years. It is supposed to be an overarching effort aimed at helping all disenfranchised groups, but when it is targeted, it is usually for racial reasons. Since affirmative action in education was overturned this year, founders and investors knew that the industry would find an excuse to go back to how things were, would find an excuse to stall or dismiss the little progress made these past 2 years. In a sense, they were right. And the decreased DEI support in business and tech has created ripple effects, including the defunding of DEI programs by big tech giants Meta and Google. Sequoia and McGuire did not respond to requests for comment by the time of publication. Vinnie Kunch, the founder of Diversified Tech, said back in 2020 she saw a spike in the number of people wanting to work with her company, which helps connect companies to diverse talent pipelines. But come 2022, she saw a complete reversal. I was honestly confused as I hadn't changed anything in how I ran my business, she said. Then I slowly started noticing some patterns. Kunch pointed out that when big names like Basecamp and Coinbase enforced no politics at work measures to prevent talking about social issues in the office, they were shamed in public, but were praised behind closed doors. Meanwhile, she added, DEI budgets were cut, department heads were laid off, and self-proclaimed allies stopped showing support. CNBC reported that DEI job-related postings declined 44% compared to last year, and Google and Meta made cuts to the employees in charge of recruiting workers from underrepresented backgrounds. Devon Horst, an angel investor, said a lot of DEI consultants and agencies have started closing their doors. Firms, big and small, that once pushed for hiring more diverse founders and backing diverse companies have also moved on. Quote, many have let go of such talent, shifted their responsibilities, and or stopped supporting them entirely, Horace said. It was easy at first to brand this waning support and backlash as a result of the bear market, but Joel Emerson, a former civil rights lawyer and founder of Paradigm Strategy, feels people's concerns about DEI have morphed into more dangerous rhetoric that mischaracterizes what DEI work is and what its goals are. This implies that people were getting unfair advantages, when in reality, those founders and investors have faced many barriers to success and still are very underrepresented in their respective positions, she's told TechCrunch. Some of those sentiments are playing out in other ways. For example, the American Alliance for Equal Rights sued Fearless Fund earlier this year for running a business grant program aimed solely at Black women, alleging that it was discriminatory. Such lawsuits could have a lasting impact on venture. Indeed, founders and investors told TechCrunch Plus that the lawsuit has already created an added risk for those looking to focus on diverse communities. Quote, there are two camps here, Emerson said. The first, companies that never really wanted to do DEI, and the legal landscape and economic downturn gave them an excuse for abandoning their efforts. The second is what I am more concerned about, companies that want to build more diverse, equitable, and inclusive places, but are worried if their efforts could be targeted. Framing DEI as its own form of discrimination, as Musk tweeted, is inaccurate and dangerous framing, Emerson said. Since DEI methods do not give one group advantages at the expense of others, Black founders have never received more than 2% of all venture capital funding, and businesses founded by Black women do not last more than 5 years. The main benefactors of affirmative action and DEI policies overall are actually white women. Quote, one of the easiest ways to derail a program designed for equal justice is to target the most vulnerable groups in society. Walter Greason, a history professor at Macalester College. Critics know that there is a historical and contemporary resentment against opportunities for African Americans. So making Black people the target of public outrage is a fast way to advance their agenda. When implemented well, DEI actually levels the playing field by addressing the needs of all people. But as within any other initiatives that aims to have a wide and significant and in effect, as DEI initiatives do, change is hard to bring about if you're not using resources wisely and targeting the most important problems first. That requires data and tracking. Emerson said, tracking metrics and data is critical to understanding the gaps one is trying to solve. It's how a firm would know if there are gaps in hiring, promotions, pay, or sentiment, which would indicate if one group of people are having a worse experience than others. Of course, DEI initiatives appear in many forms, but they usually help create better business outcomes, she said. Quote, I often see people's misconceptions change when we show them how the work can be done, can be measured. Greason thinks the backlash against DEI started long before 2022. He said it was popularized by the MAGA movement in 2015. Ding, ding, ding. Notably, in 2020, President Donald Trump attempted to ban diversity training among federal workers, including learning about systemic racism. President Joe Biden since reversed Trump's executive order, but this is only emblematic of a deep-rooted tension that goes far beyond tech. DEI backlash is happening in areas from fashion to medical care to academics. The Small Business Administration and Minority Business Development Agency are also being sued for offering grants to people from socially or economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Quote, when all of us come to understand that our freedom is connected to our efforts to empower each other, we can break these systems of exclusion that have historically crippled human civilization, Greason said. That's going to be hard to pull off, given that the loudest critics in the space are among the wealthiest people in the world. Right now, Greason and Kunch said the only way forward is to speak out openly, create hope, not fear. After all, it's not uncommon to see backlash during the fights for progress. Well, as someone who works in the tech space, I'll say this. People like Elon Musk are a part of the problem, big part of the problem. It's always the people at the top that have a fear of what's going on below them because they want to control the outcome. They don't want to see black faces in the office, especially black men in particular. They have a big grievance with just seeing black men existing because what black men do in corporate settings is they decenter whiteness, right? If whiteness is the litmus test in the standard bearer for how people live and go about their day within the corporate setting, then what black men do is they upset all of that, just their presence alone. And so when black men have to be engaged on a day-to-day basis, it becomes a chore for a lot of white people, especially white men, because they don't really want to have to deal with black people at that level. You know, if they can have you work remotely and not have to deal with you, then they will prefer that. But to actually interact with you on a day-to-day basis, they don't really want that. And so the backlash for DEI is that they really don't want to deal with black people as a whole, collectively. They just would prefer that you just not be there at all. But they want all of the state and federal benefits, tax abatements and stuff that they can get that would be beneficial if they had reinvested into the community. This is one of the things that Boston is really good at doing now, especially Cambridge. You can't open up a business here unless you comply with the sort of community stipulations. You have to hire within the community. You have to give back to community. There's a whole lot of things that you have to do before you can open up a business, move your organization here. It just doesn't work that way where you can just set up shop and be done with it. And considering that black people make up the majority of the minority population, a lot of your corporate people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and these other guys, they don't want to have to deal with black people, especially black men. They just have an adverse reaction to dealing with black people, man. They just don't really like us. They don't want to have to deal with us at that level. They don't have any problem with us buying their products. They just have a problem with us existing in the same corporate setting, the same corporate environment. They have a big problem with that. I mean, we talked about this many times before, but this is a huge, huge problem. We just covered, Drew Holiday and Lauren Holiday's an organization that helps, close the gap in these areas. This is part of the whole entire DEI ecosystem, but these people don't want to actually deal with that at all. They just want to have a predominantly white environment and not have any black people around and then not call themselves racist. Like, who the fuck are you then?
No, well, Mike, I think really, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. What they would prefer that you be as a customer as opposed to a competitor. You know what I'm saying? That's really what the preference is.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So, and there's an X factor when a competitor doesn't mirror them, so to speak, and I'm talking about like skin color, right? So that's the fear. It's the X factor fear.
I
Yeah,
don't think it's
go
so
ahead.
much. I don't think it's so much an X factor fear. Just with
Mhm.
Mike, because I'm knee deep in this game. Been in the corporate game for some years,
Mhm.
and the bottom line, very simply, is they don't want you there. For a lot of you, they don't want you there. They feel like if you're there, you're taking something from one of them, to a large extent, they don't want you there. They want less of you around. Is it competition? Yeah, it's competition, but they don't even want you to be co-workers with them to a large extent. Especially these white guys. They have an issue with you because it does F up the white aesthetic. It definitely does. So to have a black man there, that is an issue. They don't want you there. And all of these moves that are being made are here to make sure that they reduce your presence in these areas. That's all this is about. Don't shake it, bake it. I don't care how else you want to break it down. That's where they are with this. And that's how you have to look at it. Plain and simple.
They want to sabotage progress for Black folks, especially Black men. They're just not really interested in the advancement of Black people. And I think that, that kind of, that kind of mindset is so toxic in the environment. Can you imagine working with these types of people every single day? They have these sort of, I've talked about these examples before, like you'll have a conversation about the Patriots, and as soon as you chime in, they got a problem with it. It's something benign as talking about sports, they have a problem with that. And so you imagine if you're in a position where they have to actually listen to you, there's all sorts of grumblings, and microaggressions that come out from that. And their idea of a microaggression is to push back against DEI. But DEI isn't just about race, at least not in this context. It's more about how do you engage people who are underrepresented? Well, what happens when you have people with disabilities? Well, I'm just so sick and tired of all these handicap ramps and these handicap, parking spaces. I'm just going to park my truck in it. You don't hear people really thinking like that, but there's people out there who really feel that way about Black people. They just don't want Black people around, especially Black men. They just have especially if you're a tall, handsome Black man, they don't like that. Black men who are in the gym don't like that. Always got a problem with it. And so I think we're at a point, and I think Trump really created, like the article is saying, I agree with the article 100%, that Trump really created a lot of these issues. I mean, they were there before, but he helped exacerbate a lot of these problems in the corporate setting, because there's a lot of white people who work in corporate America, and sometimes you see them with their AirPods on, and they are listening to Glenn Beck. They're listening to Tommy Lauren, or they're listening to The Blaze, or they're listening to, what's this other joker from Fox News? Tucker Carlson. They're listening to all of these guys, and they're consuming all of this content throughout their day. And as soon as they run into you, it's like a tinderbox about to go off. And so that's where this is coming from. I would say that, federal government should push back and say, listen, if you have to take a penny of federal dollars from us, you have to comply with all this, with affirmative action. Fuck what the Supreme Court justices are saying. No, if you want more federal dollars from us, you have to comply with people's civil rights in the workplace. End of the story. If you take a penny from us and you don't comply, we're gonna take action against you. You got to have people who are more aggressive about that. But that's where your civil rights groups are supposed to come in and really lay down the law on these folks. Ben Crump can't do it on his own right now. So. Oh, I'm on mute because nobody heard me.
No. But you're right on the money, Mike.
No, Mike, you're good. You're good, Mike.
And you're right on the money with that. That's the bottom line. People can shape it any which way they want. You can't get around that. I'm in the middle of it. I've experienced some of this myself. And I remember I was having an issue when I called Mike up one day. Call Mike up. Mike, this is the situation I'm dealing with. It was strictly because of negritude. Strictly based on that. This guy wouldn't have tried that with a white dude. But he did it with me. It was wild. It didn't work, but these guys will come at you just because they don't want you around. They don't want you around, man. You got to deal with that. And they want to ostracize you quick and move you out. It's a part. I've experienced it. A lot of other brothers who are in this arena have seen it themselves. Some may not want to admit it, but they've encountered this, and it is a big part of that. And this DEI thing is to reduce your footprint. It's to cut you back to the fat meat. That's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, the workplace is one setting, but they don't want you, raising the same amount of capital as they can from a venture capitalist standpoint. They don't want you getting any nonprofit, dollars. This is this is a societal wide issue that I don't think that Black people are in this space. I don't hear Black people talking about this at all. I don't hear any content creators talking about the backlash of DEI in the workplace. There's a lot of Black men in this space that I've heard really support this idea of getting rid of DEI because they think it benefits Black women. Who do you think is being impacted by it right now? Is Black men being impacted by this? And so, I don't get it, man. This idea of getting rid of it and thinking that you're gonna replace it with nothing and hard work. Black people have been working hard since fucking slavery. What are you talking about, man? There's nobody more hardworking than the Negro, right? But you have people thinking that you just get rid of affirmative action, you get rid of DEI, everything will be all right, man. You're in for a rude awakening. Try starting a business and see how it works out for you.
I mean, that's the bottom line. And a lot of these Negroes who are making these comments, they're not very smart people. They're not intelligent, and like I said, these are guys who'd rather, who feel inferior to these white guys. I mean, I just hate to say it, they feel second fiddle to them, so they're comfortable taking that position. But have been sold on, hey, listen, knock Beck, knock Keisha out the box. But a lot of these guys don't understand what they can't fathom, what they don't really see. You're knocking Keisha out, okay, fine, that's great. They're knocking you out as well. You're getting. It's not like they're knocking Keisha out to bring you in. That's not what these guys are doing. So you have to understand that, and these guys are just, they just aren't. A lot of them are not in the space, but they're talking crazy. But a lot of them, who would like to be in there, think that it's going one way and it's really not, and it's pretty sad. You got to keep these guys. You got to keep people awake. These moves are not being made to your benefit.
Yeah, and you got to compose yourself because these sort of microaggressions about DEI and affirmative action, that can set a lot of brothers off in the workplace, man. All it takes is somebody call you a nigger or something like that, or to sabotage you in the conference room or something like that, man. You may end up laying your fist on somebody and going to jail. I mean, we saw that in Connecticut, with Omar Thornton, man. He went to HR several times at the Budweiser facility and said, hey, these gray boys are haranguing me in the workplace. HR told him, go kick rocks or something, stop complaining, right? And he came back with a pistol and he handled his business in there. Not that I justify it, but I understand. So, you got a lot of folks who want to test you in the corporate setting and just push your buttons to see how far they can go with this. It's not just DEI, but it's what they think DEI stands for. It's what they think affirmative action stands for. I think they polled white people last year before the verdict on affirmative action from the Supreme Court, and they said like 65 to 70% of white people are against affirmative action. Doesn't even know where affirmative action is, but they're completely against it. It's really strange to have a country of people who say they agree with progress, but they just don't agree with DEI and affirmative action. And I'm like, okay, so how do you get progress then? Well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
And Mike,
of which they never have, of which they don't pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They are the most couched, grouped up folks you've ever seen. And they constantly are grabbing somebody and floating them around. They're not doing the bootstraps thing, but they're telling you to do the bootstraps. It's incredible, but it is. I mean, but when you call them out on it, they call foul. They call foul.
But when you really think about bootstraps, right? I mean, this term gets thrown around a lot. Oh, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Who was more bootstraps than Booker T. Washington? Who was more bootstraps than, most of your innovators of the 19th century? Your
Marcus Garvey's
shit. Yeah, your Marcus Garvey's and whatnot. What are you talking about? Black people have a history of bootstrap politics, and yet people want to still throw this bootstrap argument against them as if, oh, you just been waiting for a handout. No, that's not true.
Well, wait a minute, Mike. See, I've always interpreted okay. In the most realistic transliteration that I'm supposed to take from that would essentially mean take initiative.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with that?
But Black people have always taken initiative. This society doesn't work without Black people's contributions in taking initiative. It's almost impossible for anybody to look through American history and say that, oh, Black these old lazy niggers. What are you talking about? Most of your innovations have come from Black people. Black people coming out of slavery at what, a 5% literacy rate, and then came out, 20 years later with a 95 to 97% literacy rate due to the HBCUs and access to public schooling.
We haven't seen that damn near in any other peoples on earth. On earth. On earth.
It just frustrates me, man. It just really frustrates you. I'm dealing with that right now at work. I mean, the DEI backlash is real. Although they went out and hired a bunch of folks after George Floyd, you're starting to see folks, hit the exit because the fever is starting to raise. And so we got Salchi on the panel. What's going on, bro?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Chilling, bro. Long time.
Yes, sir.
Happy New Year.
Oh,
Yeah,
same to
good,
you guys,
bro.
man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I try to every once in a while when I'm on panels, I try to bring that up because, as you stated, a lot of guys aren't in, the corporate sector, and some guys look down on it. But, and I've told some people, even some Black women at work, because a lot of them, unfortunately, they don't, for whatever reason, they go to college, and in my opinion, they get more indoctrinated. And in my opinion, they're not really as educated as they feel that they are. I had some Black women at my previous job telling me that, the executives are taking me serious because I'm a man. And I'm looking at them, like, hold on a minute. Who's the CEO? I had to ask him this. One of them was my manager. I said, who's the CEO? Woman. I said, so how was there an issue? She's a woman. And I had to break it down to her. I said, what kind of woman is she? Oh, she's white. I said, okay, yeah. Then I said, where does her son work? Oh, he's here. I said, what position does he have? Senior exec, right? Okay. I said, now do you see the game? Do you understand? Do you see why Black women typically get stopped in middle management? And there's even fewer Black men there? I said, do you not see it happening? It's right here, where you work. And you can't see the game, but you're saying it's not enough good Black men. And then you're saying it's just, the game is only for men. So the few of us who understand what's really going on or who are experiencing it, we're getting backlash on both sides. Unfortunately, amongst Blacks, and of course, the institutions, obviously the whites are the ones who, own and control the institutions. So when the small individuals of us who understand the game, especially when it comes to power and money and influence, and we try to come back to Black folks and try to tell them, yo, this is how the game is, this is how we can move. Many of them either don't believe it or they don't want to hear it. And I think many of them are just defeated. Just in my experience from responses. And it's sad because we don't have the number. I'm sorry.
You say defeated in what way?
Just their response. Everybody can't have a college degree. Oh, well, everybody can't be as smart as you. Oh, well, the white people, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so what? The fact that
who's saying this?
No, I'm saying I've heard this from Black folks, unfortunately.
Black men and women, or women?
Yeah, Black, both. It's been a mix.
No, I was just trying to understand because you brought Black women up specifically, so I was just trying to make sure I was correlating the point correctly.
Oh, understood. So my thing is, and I just tell them it doesn't, because we don't have the numbers, and in a sense we don't have the time. There should be a sense of urgency. Okay, if obviously college is not for everybody, fine. Then there's the trades. There shouldn't be there should be minimal in-group fighting. Because homie over there, if he's a good plumber, we should be he should be leading in that end. If the other guy's an electrician, he should be leading in that end. If we're in corporate and we're leading, we should be leading in that end and working together internally. Like, I don't understand this whole I'm better than you in this. We don't have time for that. And I've said that on quite a few, panels. I'm like, listen, we don't have to agree on every little thing, but we don't have time. Like, y'all don't get the shit. What's happening right now internationally and in this country.
I think some Black people do miss the the crux of the discussion. I think that when it comes to DEI, I think that there is a misunderstanding of what DEI's purpose is and what it actually does versus who's impacted by what. I think everybody's impacted by DEI at the ground level. I think when you have a corporate office that is predominantly white and they're okay with it being predominantly white in a place like New York City that's supposed to be a melting pot and you don't see anything wrong with it, that in itself is the core issue, that people are okay with racism. They're okay with that. And they take that, it's not that, because we saw this during the pandemic. A Black man was bird watching in Central Park and had a white woman call the police on him, to try to get him jammed up. This is before George Floyd, right? And so we see this sort of attitude where said person worked for corporation, they're on LinkedIn and they're all about DEI and they all got these colorful pictures and stuff like that in their backdrop. But as soon as they come out in the citizenry in the outside of the corporate space, immediately call the police on a Black man or try to stop somebody from having a lemonade stand or something like that. That is the core issue with DEI, is that you have people sandbagging progress within the space. And I think that Black people need to understand that they're coming after all of us. It's not just Black women that are having their fearless fun attacked. They're also coming after Black men as well that are going to be impacted by a lot of these things, like we're going to read in this article here. Let me jump to this article. This is the last one on here. This is from Bloomberg Law. Okay. NASCAR accused of bias against white men in diversity efforts. What's that? Let me zoom in on this. NASCAR and a racing team in the organization supports NASCAR and a racing team, the organization supports to develop a female and minority drivers are the latest targets of a conservative legal group's offensive against corporate diversity initiatives. America's First Legal, led by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller, asked the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to investigate NASCAR and Rev Racing for illegal discrimination against white male Americans. Here we go. Over the past year, AFL has accused more than a dozen companies, including Morgan Stanley, Major League Baseball, McDonald's, and Starbucks, of having discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The EEOC has yet to publicly respond to the group's request, which potentially put the Civil Rights Agency in the difficult position of probing corporate policies aimed at reducing workplace discrimination. The group claimed that NASCAR and Rev Racing's DEI programs, including its Diversity Driver Development Program, Diversity Pit Crew Development Program, and the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program, violate Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race and sex. These programs previously specified that they were intended for women and ethnic minorities, but were updated on September 1st to say they sought applicants of diverse backgrounds and experiences, according to the AFL's letter to the EEOC. Despite the language change, it claimed that NASCAR and Rev Racing are continuing to carry out unlawful hiring practices under the cloak of a diverse backgrounds and experiences rebranding. A spokesperson for NASCAR didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. So this is what we're up against. Even something like NASCAR, okay, something that Black people very seldomly watch, is being attacked because they think that white men are being targeted for diversity efforts. NASCAR is a dying sport, okay, or a dying entity of racing, primarily because the demographics are changing. And so if you don't start bringing in the new demographic of people like Black and Latinos and everybody else, it's going to die on its own, on its own.
I think that's actually the problem, Mike.
What's that?
No, I think you just literally touched on the problem. Now, I'm a motorsport geek, right?
Yep.
And this past season, I've been a casual observer of NASCAR because of the new car specifications, right? So the new car that runs in NASCAR, it's pretty trick. It's a really good car, and there's a lot of versatility in it. And so because of this, there is a lot of expansion that NASCAR could actually do. I don't know if you guys know this, but back in May of last year, or today's the first, right? So last year at Le Mans, there was a NASCAR, it was a Camaro.
Correct.
And they kitted it to run at Le Mans. And the thing was outpacing LMP2 cars. Okay, it was kicking their ass. So it gained a cult following globally. And what's happening here is that you're looking at the effects of globalization, the effects of social media. You're looking at the impact of all of these things on something that was very, very much traditionally, what do they call it, like the old boys, the old boys club, or
The old boys, the old
Yeah.
boys network.
Yeah. It was traditionally that. But what I'm saying, and in the same token, you had Kamui Kobayashi, you had Shane Van Gisbergen, who won the street race in Chicago in his first race in NASCAR. He's Australian. You have Jenson Button. He's from the United Kingdom. He's from the UK. You also have a mix of international drivers that have been coming into NASCAR and making an impact. So once again, there's a sort of like a global impact and a social media disruption of that sort of old boys network that used to exist in NASCAR.
Yeah, but let's just say this: Richard Petty, even the Petty family, as we know, they were old time Southerners. They worked with some black folks, but Petty used to get out there and drive his black and orange number 43 stars and bars, Confederate flag on the front on the hood of his car around the track. Now, he dropped all of that. He's out front for diversity and and all of that because they understand that if they don't drop that and if they don't push DEI, that their sport is going to have a huge problem. So, and they're looking at this thing from the long game perspective. So that's something that they're actually having somewhat, I think, of an internal fight on that, because you have some of these white dudes saying, hey, we don't want diversity, but bro, if you don't really move that way, your sport is going to be finished. And people like Richard Petty and Kyle Petty and the people out on the front line, these are some of the people out on the front lines.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's too late for that. Like I said, you had Shane Van Gisbergen who won the first NASCAR street race ever held in Chicago back in July, I want to say. It was either June or July in Chicago. He won it, and he's from Australia. Okay, they run the Australian V8s, supercars there.
Right. Yep.
It's a very similar version of the car. So when he came here, he basically knew how to drive this car better than the guys that drive it professionally here. Okay. You have, like I said, you have other international drivers because they drive more sophisticated variants of cars. They
Correct.
can come here and be very competitive to that sort of old network of drivers and teams and all that. And you're seeing it in NASCAR right now. You're actually seeing it. So that's why this article is an issue, is because it literally, NASCAR is becoming more of a diverse global sport, so to speak. Like I said, you had the Le Mans Camaro, the Garage 56 Camaro ran at Le Mans. that's an international race. NASCAR is not even really, they haven't been sanctioned to run their actual cars there since maybe the late 60s or early 70s.
Mhm.
It's been that long. And I'm saying that car, that Camaro showed out, dude. It was eating up LMP2s.
Well, you have to understand. You have to understand the earlier NASCARs, as you would know, those cars were really were only really outfitted to really run 500 miles. The guarantee the engine would do that. So
Well,
when you look at Le Mans, which is 24 hours,
it's 24 hours, but you know what? The when you add it up,
game.
I think when you added up 24 hours, the track distance, oh gosh, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 miles.
Well,
Oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, the focus of this is really about the diversity aspect. I think that
Yeah.
the fact that NASCAR is making these efforts, and it's only the gray boys like Stephen Mills, former Trump, cohort. It really just proves that folks really don't have our best interests at all. Even in areas where they do need us, they just like doing anything to sabotage progress. And so, Equalizer, what is your thoughts on this?
No, Mike, I just want to say this, and that's why I was saying why Teddy and those guys were getting in here to fight against that, because they know that this is not the way to go if this sport is going to last and stay out in a long way. They're going to have to bring the diversity in there, and they have said this themselves. So that's exactly correct. And you had these other great boys who are coming in here trying to stop you. There's no question about it. So you have that mix on the inside where it's somewhat of a fight, but at the end of the day, there's a fight to keep you out of that as well.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm a gearhead, not big onto NASCAR, but I do know that car they were running was unlimited for Le Mans.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I mean, obviously motorsport is extremely expensive. But I mean, I'm not surprised, I understand why they're using, DEI, but the issue is, forget about the black folks. At least those of us who watch, motorsports, we already knew these international guys are already better drivers on average than the American driver. I mean, you could just look at F1. How many American drivers are there right now? One, and he struggled. One.
He could even Andretti's boy, when he went out there, he was supposed to be a top runner out there. He was nothing. I mean, but you got guys like Nigel Mansell and these other guys going back towards the late 80s, 90s who came in and tore all these cats out the frame. So we've known this a long time. This is nothing new.
But we gotta look at the fact that your greatest modern day driver right now is Lewis Hamilton, and that's a brother. Let's not get away from this, right? And he's done it at the highest level. So we're talking Formula One. See, so now we have to look at that.
Even Lewis talks about the discrimination, though.
He does.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes,
I was gonna say, he did it with that. Yeah.
He's been getting it since he was karting, since he was a child.
He's karting. No, where he lucked out was, but see, the thing is that he had Ron Dennis and McLaren. Was it Ron Dennis? The principal of McLaren at the time, I want to say. He had McLaren backing the whole time. See, so at the end of the day, they were going to get him to Formula One. Ugo Chukwu, I want to say, make sure I'm not butchering his name. He's the next Lewis Hamilton right now. He's racing Formula 3 in the UK right now. Okay. And McLaren is backing him. They basically got their next Lewis Hamilton, and they did the same thing with Lewis that they did with him. They got him in karting. They've got him up to Formula 4 or Formula 3 right now. Yeah. He'll be Formula 2 next season or Formula Red Bull. And then from there, he'll start testing Formula 1. But you have to have that kind of protection in the field of motorsport to shield you largely from that. Lewis Hamilton catches a lot of shit in social media, but see, in the car, he's eating your ass a lot. Pause. He's eating you up alive on the track.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But Lewis Hamilton is mentioning, so I follow him closely, and And I've loved him for years, but the reality, very simply, is he is talking that there is a tremendous amount of discrimination in the game. You cannot deny it, like in NASCAR. So these things, and now they're going against DEI and all that. That's to lessen your footprint. Some people do not like, and I'm going to say this very quickly, and I'm out. Some people do not like seeing a Lewis Hamilton out there. They don't like seeing a dark blackie, and he's not even all black, but they don't like seeing a dark blackie out there freaking knocking out their guys like Schumacher and all that. Some of these people have a problem with that.
Well, I was just going to say it.
We can't lie about that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think the Equalizer can speak to this. Abu Dhabi 2021.
Oh, come on, man.
Screw job.
Come on, man. Don't get me started.
Okay. Never mind. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike, please.
Go ahead.
Subject, bro.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
Let me jump to this last piece here before we go over the MOTs. All right, this is from The Guardian. Diversity policies face full-out attack in 2024, leading HR boss warns. Let me zoom in on this. Diversity, equity, and inclusion policies within U.S. companies will come under full-out attack in 2024, the president of the largest U.S. human resources organization in the U.S. has said. Quote, it's going to become a hot-button issue this year. Johnny C. Taylor, Jr., president and chief executive of Society of Human Resource Management, told reporters. The national shift to be more inclusive that followed the murder of George Floyd in 2020 and the Black Lives Matter protests that followed is already fading, he said. We're already seeing companies go away from it. Following Floyd's murder and figures that showed how hard communities of color have been hit by the COVID pandemic, companies across the U.S. pledged to make their workforces more diverse and tackle racism. COVID and the murder of George Floyd kind of shined the spotlight on something that we already knew. The JP Morgan boss, Jamie Dimon, said during an interview in 2020. We've had racial inequality in this country since way before the Civil War, and we haven't done a particularly good job of fixing it. Hey, he would make a better presidential candidate than, let's say, Nikki Haley. Taylor suggested the reset could be as strong as the backlash against the environmental, social, and governance movement that was critical of the fossil fuel industry. Texas in 2022 banned companies like BlackRock from doing business with the state because of their work with ESG investing. The backlash of DEI policies is already becoming clear. On Friday, Elon Musk posted on his social media platform X, formerly Twitter, that DEI must die. Quote, the point was to end discrimination, not replace it with a different discrimination, Musk wrote. The reversal comes after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in higher education this summer. While the ruling did not explicitly mention companies' DEI policies, the conservative movement that brought the issue to the Supreme Court in the first place has its eyes on DEI in the workplace. The American Alliance for Equal Rights, run by conservative legal activist Edward Bloom, filed a lawsuit over the summer against the Atlanta-based venture capital firm Fearless Fund, which focuses on funding companies run by women of color. In September, a federal appeals court in Georgia halted a Fearless Fund grant program that would have given $20,000 in funding to Black female entrepreneurs because of the lawsuit. Taylor said that companies are carefully considering their diversity goals and initiatives. Employee resource groups, ERGs, or affinity groups have become a really big point of contention within companies, as have policies that tie leadership compensation to diversity goals. Quote, the question is how companies can say we aspire to be more diverse without being prescriptive, Taylor said. Noting that comments about goals to make a workforce a specific diversity percentage could, for example, be taken as a type of quota that will run afoul with the Supreme Court decision. Taylor said that 2024 will be a reset moment for DEI policies. Quote, we're 3 years after what happened in 2020, and we think it's time to say, did that work and make certain adjustments to approach to diversity, he said. Having different experiences, perspectives, and people will ultimately yield a better result. But it's how you get to that. How does all that work? Here's the deal. One of the biggest challenges I see with DEI is that we're only changing who we hire, but not who the leaders are. If you still have leaders born before 1965, I can almost guarantee you those folks have no interest in changing. Okay, they listen to Glenn Beck, they listen to Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, they listen to Fox News, OAN, name your media outlet that leans conservative, and they take those ideas into the workplace. Now, they can hire a Black person, but the problem is that's where it stops. That Black person never advances. They stay in that position, and they end up doing work that is not meaningful to their advancement, and then thus they end up leaving too. Okay, they then tend to have high turnover rates in the environment because there's no pathway to progress for those Black people. They just hired them, and that was the end of it. And so
a quota hire.
Yeah, it looks good on paper. Oh, what percentage of your team is actually
quota hire.
Black and brown, right? Right.
Yes.
I'm saying they'll ask the question, what's the percentage, right? And they'll say, 33% of my team is Black or something like that. Oh, that's a great number. Where was it before? It was 0. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, that sounds good on paper, but what happens when you have to interact with these people? You're not keeping the metrics. You're not looking at the performance. You're not looking at the investment into them. How much training are they getting? So on and so forth. I'm speaking from a tech perspective.
How many of them are promoted into higher positions?
Senior,
right?
Exactly. I look at
Yeah.
senior execs, and I look at the board. That's all I need to see. That tells me what's going on.
Yeah. And so that, I think the challenge is leadership. Now, Microsoft, Google, and I think what is it? Microsoft, Google, and
Amazon?
I forget the other one now. Yeah, Amazon did change, but it's not. I don't think it's Amazon now. It's IBM. Sorry, IBM.
Okay.
All three companies changed their leadership to be Indian males.
Microsoft.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Microsoft,
Yeah.
Google,
Microsoft.
and IBM.
Yeah,
Yep,
Microsoft is Indian.
They took out their white leadership, replaced it with brown leadership in the face of Indian folks, Southeast Asian folks. That being said, that has had a significant change on the ground level, primarily because you don't have the same intentions. I'm not saying that Indian people are perfect. I'm not saying they're part of the Black-Brown coalition, so to speak, from a left-leaning perspective. I'm saying the mindset is different because they don't want to repeat the same actions that the predecessor has done. So they have an incentive on driving goals of ESG and DEI and affirmative action and so on and so forth. They're trying to create a more equitable workplace. And so that's why they tend to have better outcomes as opposed to other companies that have adopted DEI initiatives and ESG goals, but have not actually changed their leadership at all. Their leadership just looks the same as it was, 20 years ago. And it's like, no, you have to change the leadership too. You can't have all of these, these right-leaning, moderate people in the workplace governing people who are considered to be the future of diversity. It makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're talking about, Mike, with that look, I think to get an image of what you're speaking about, in terms of what true sort of like diversity in the tech field, so to speak, looks like. The brother that he was on CNBC, I want to say they did a profile on him about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and
Okay.
I didn't even know this. He's the head of Ford Design.
Yeah,
Like,
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? I do. I
Yeah.
did not know that. And see, I think that's that's what that looks like that you're talking about.
There's a brother who's in charge of Chrysler, right? The brother who made the 300.
Yeah, that's right.
Ralph Giles, right?
Yeah.
Right, Ralph Giles. Yes.
Yeah. He's the head of Chrysler, or at least he was at one point the head of Chrysler before they got the merger going. But I'm saying that's a nice start, but that's not being replicated throughout the industry.
No,
that's a
course
big
not.
problem.
No,
right?
I'm saying I wanted to highlight what you're like an example of what you're talking about, but you don't see that mirrored across. No, you don't.
Yeah, one in every 100 cybersecurity companies has a black CEO. As it stands right now, the CEO of Rapid7 is the only black CEO of a cybersecurity company right now. That's a big problem. Yeah, you have a big problem when it comes to leadership. I'm saying they only want to control what DEI, means rather than what it should be from an impact perspective. And so when they have DEI, they say, yeah, we hire complex design and he's a part of our, our startup and everything else. But, when you go the further you go up to the top, the more whiter it gets. It's like the attitude hasn't changed at all. And so
and then you ask me, what are my tasks? And dude, it's like lackey shit.
Well, yeah, not so much as lackey, but it's not clearly defined so that you can actually have any sort of metric-driven progress results. Go ahead, Salchi.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's done intentionally because that threatens their influence, their influence and obviously their income. CNBC just posted something on Instagram last week where they were showing, I think it was median household income. And I'm glad you said, with Indian, race, they have the highest in the country now. It was 100 and something thousand. And obviously they have intact families, of course. But, that shows you what happens when you do change, when you do, put some of these people in these positions. Now, when it comes to black folks, I mean, obviously been fighting since day one. It's sad to say, but it's like good luck, because even when they do put us in those positions, a lot of times it's for you to fail on purpose. They're putting you in certain, locations that have already failed. So it's not impossible, but it's highly improbable that anybody was going to get it up. So now they put you in here just to say, okay, well, we put a black person in there. Oh, it just didn't work. So I mean, that's what typically happens to this day.
I think one of the better examples of DEI has worked over the years, the last few years, has been the NBA. I think that the NBA has done an incredible job at turning around the organization from what it was before to what it is today. You see more black millionaires coming out of the NBA now than what you've ever seen before in any other organization or any other platform out there, right? I mean, it's not just the players that are getting money. Now you have the lower level people below the C-suite getting some money now too. Now you got more what's LeBron's boy who's married to Adele? Rich Paul,
yep.
Right? He opened up the door for a lot of other brothers on the ground to actually get involved, right? And now you have more basketball camps and so on and so forth that are involved in the whole entire ecosystem. Afro beats, more rappers. You didn't see all this stuff maybe 20 plus years ago. Now you're starting to see a lot of that triculate down to folks on the ground getting involved. And that's, to me, that's a real DEI program where you actually have the majority of the constituency driving the process and driving the metrics and actually, providing tangible results at the end of the day. I think a lot of organizations can learn from the NBA at this point. I'm not saying Adam Silver or his predecessor was the best. I'm saying
Stern.
David Stern. I'm saying I think that they're making the progress is more tangible in the NBA than it is in any organization. There's not one organization on LinkedIn right now that can put up their portfolio against the NBA and say that they're doing, just as well, if not better. We see the NBA in a lot of black neighborhoods, putting up tech centers now in STEM programs and funding STEM programs by the hundreds of thousands or the thousands for that matter. You don't really see too many organizations really involved like that at the ground level and being transparent about it. And so I think that when it comes to DEI, I think the NBA is probably the best example. Even the NFL can't hold a candle to the NBA right now.
Right. No,
I agree
on that.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out, share the video if possible, and have a happy new year as well.